I'm sure I take more water.
More water?
Yes.
Okay. So you have to be at. I don't see the book, babe. Do you have it on the shelf?
Maybe check the shelf and check the nightstand.
Yeah, nightstand. Because I keep a good eye on that shelf.
Why do you do that?
It's not on the nightstand, babe. It has to be.
Where could it be?
Oh, I see it.
Was it on the shelf?
Yeah, it was just underneath another book. Here you go.
Thank you, baby.
Welcome. This is probably, the book club is probably one of my favorite things to do.
I think so too.
You think it's one of mine or it's one of yours? All right.
It's one of mine.
Yeah. I want to try to be a little bit more prepared.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little hard with the sessions because the first introduction wasn't like a super specific thing. But I'll be a little bit more prepared for that one next time. Let's see. Your videos. Live. Boom, get shareable link. That was about 50 minutes long. Patreon. New video. I wish we could like make people who support us financially automatic Patreons. Because I feel like Alvin and Savannah would love this stuff. You know?
Yeah, but also it's nice that they're giving us $250.
Babe, I don't know if you want to be putting that out here on the live.
Oh, we're live?
Yeah, babe.
And to cut that out, babe. I didn't know that. We're live.
Okay, where is it? Sorry, 1 second. Your videos. I'm just trying to title it correctly.
You're bad, babe. I didn't know that was on.
It's all right.
Yeah, cut that out.
We will. Let me click here. Here we go. This is what I wanted for this. Boom. Live. We're live. Join us. Book club. Boom. Publish now. Okay, you ready, babe?
Yes.
Or I'm gonna let you lead it like last time, okay?
Are you gonna let me lead it?
Yeah.
Hold on, let me find the book.
Let me close this. Let me close this. Let me close this. Let me close this.
You ready, baby?
Yes, sir.
Welcome to our book club. To...
One of our favorites, truly.
Yes, it's been such a joy reading this book.
I love it.
If you don't know, my name is Kendall Dooley. And you can find me on the Instagrams at dooley.kendall or on Twitter as well, under Kendall Dooley.
I don't know if we have to do our our Instagram and stuff for this one because it's only for Patreons. They already know who we are. But I don't want to. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
If you don't know, now you know. You can find me there. What about you, babe? Share with the people.
I am Erin Dooley, and you can find me on Instagram, Erin V. Lashley. It's probably going to stay that way because I'm changing my middle name to Victoria-Lashley. So, anyways, let's get right into it, babe.
Yeah, go for it, babe. What stood out to you in this next chapter?
No,
chapter
I wanted you to start. This is chapter 2.
Of Jesus and the Disinherited.
On chapter 2, a chapter called Fear.
A chapter called Fear.
I want you to start because I feel like I really enjoy hearing your thoughts, and then I like building off of it and like a tree.
Like
branches.
a tree branching out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One of my thoughts, I feel bad because I'd actually read ahead. And so now I got to go back to gather all my thoughts on the fear chapter.
You didn't want to read it in your actual book?
Yeah, I took notes. I'm actually borrowing this book from a friend. Thank you, friend Stacy. And so I didn't want to write in her book. And so I got it for free online. And so I wanted to keep my notes and stuff in there and all my highlights and things.
Yeah.
But what's cool about these like next 3 chapters, fear, deception, and hate that he lays out, is like he mentions all of that in the first chapter, and he basically says like these 3 things, he calls them the hounds of the disinherited. Kind of like these are the dogs, the hounds that are grasping at the feet of those who are the marginalized, and those who are the disinherited. Which when I first read that, I interpreted it as like, man, this is something that's done against them. This is like something that's done against the marginalized and those who are left out from those who have power and the strong. Like, this is something that's done to them. And so I went to this chapter and all these next chapters kind of thinking that, but I was like, oh, he's actually saying something that's even more powerful. He says this is something that those who are the disinherited, those who are in the margins, this is something that they feel and that they experience and their attitude towards things that is, that's not allowing them to be their full selves. This is something that's not allowing them to be a full person who's embracing the religion of Jesus.
Yeah.
When they really take these things that they're feeling and these attitudes that they're feeling and kind of internalize them. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. So because he makes the enemy not exactly like, well, the underlying enemy is is like these evil systems and oppressive systems that we need to be liberated from. But he also calls out the enemy that doesn't allow us to engage with those, kind of as he was talking about the resistance and non-resistance. Like we're not able to engage and actually become liberated if we don't deal with this stuff first.
Yeah.
If we don't deal in this chapter with fear and the stuff first, we can't truly fight for liberation. Which I was like, man, that's even more thought-provoking than what I thought what it was going to be before, where it paints the oppressive systems and people as the enemies and how we overcome them. But it's like, no, these are actually, you have to overcome this within yourself first in order to engage these oppressive systems.
Yeah. I really like the way that he sets this up when it comes to fear, and I don't want to jump to the conclusion of the chapter, but I kind of have to. Just with the thought.
Can if you want.
It's just,
go for it.
Well, one, I'm reading this in the context of my own life, right? It's like I'm so identifying with this fear feeling that anytime I'm interacting with white people, I am often, without having language for it up until this point, often trying to calculate the risk of harm that will be done to me if I try to explain my experience as a Black woman in America to someone who calls me their friend, which I can't call them my friend anymore because that's a whole different story. But it's just wild that is the actual calculation because you like, if I say truth to you in this context, will you hear me and understand me, or will you harm me without even realizing it? Or will you harm me intentionally? Because that's another way to do it. That happens. And so it's really interesting as he breaks down in this chapter, I feel like he breaks down the psychological impacts of fear on Black people and what it does to your body, what it does to your brain, what it does to your identity. Which also, in the context of my own life as a pastor, it emphasizes the importance, especially to people of color, the importance of forming people, the spiritual formation around being loved by God and being a child of God. Because yes, that is so true, which taps into some of the genealogy stuff that we've been tapping into and getting into your history. Yes, we were slaves, but before we were slaves, we were free. And that is so liberating to me, because you must speak to, before your oppressor came into the picture, who were you? You were a child of God. You were loved, and you are a child of God, and you are loved. And he's speaking to what that does for people when they're living in oppressive societies, and when they're living in the presence of an oppressor, is that you must awaken the identity in them that identifies with the love of God and identifies with being a child of God. Because one who has that has, I forget the word he uses, but it's almost like a courage that cannot be explained, where you are able to walk through and maneuver throughout life almost as if you are unharmed. That is not an excuse for people who are oppressive. That is not an excuse for oppressors, but it is a way for oppressed people to navigate oppression when you can tap into your identity, which is being loved by God and being his child. So that's been really impactful for me.
No, I think that's really good. I think you summarized. I think you summarized the chapter. Well, I got nothing else to add. but I mean, it's true, and like I knew you would like this chapter because I read it, and I was like, oh, babe, you're gonna like this chapter because in your own story, like you found the power in like EMDR, through therapy, to like kind of look within yourself and relinquish some of this stuff that happened in the past that has like impacted your body in the now, and how to like reverse some of that, where I feel like this hits on some of that trauma that Black people experience and how it causes us to navigate in society. I think what is one thing I have, he says that in this one sentence, he says, the threat of violence is ever present, and there is no way to determine precisely when it may come crushing down upon you. And so it's like when Black people, and like this book, right, it's so prophetic for its time and even now. It's like when we see Black people being killed, when we see George Floyd being killed, Breonna Taylor being shot, then that's like, man, that could be me. That person looks like me. That person's the same color as me. That person has relatives like I have relatives. That person lives in a way that I live like. And that causes you to live in this fear, right? That there's, and he's like, he talks about physical violence and says like, that's why we live in fear. But then he even goes to say it's even this, just the violence of systems and things at play. But this is even just a case, an example of physical violence, of police that have killed black men and women. And it's like, that's on television, that's on our phones, and we're seeing that. And that causes us to like want to live a certain way and walk around a certain way, where now when we see police, we're kind of like, and we can feel it in our bodies. And so he names some of that, of like, man, and he names the reality of it, of like, man, like Black people, they've had to like live because of this violence, and that's done to people who are disadvantaged and oppressed. They always kind of navigate life under this kind of like fear of always like, man, what's gonna happen? I got to be careful how I do this. I got to be careful how I do that.
Keep going, my battery.
Is it still recording? Good.
This is the same thing that happened last time. I forgot to change the
battery. Yeah. Got to do that. Hopefully you guys can still hear us and see what's going on. But yeah, you begin to navigate in fear because of what you see, what's been done to your people, and what could be done to your people, because the system's made an example out of them. And so the example that he gives is going to India. And again, this book was written after his trip to India. He talks about going to India and how a individual told him, he and his friends, like, hey, like, there are like snakes. I can't remember. I think he said the specific snake, but I can't remember, like poisonous, dangerous snake. Like
Cobra,
there was
maybe.
I don't know if it's like Cobra. I can't remember. But he just said some dangerous snake that's around. They'll kind of pop up different places. Like, you want to watch out for them. If you're bit by the snake, it's like it's game over, and kind of really created this big threat for them and said, like, if you guys are like sleeping and you got to get up to use the bathroom, like you need to have like a flashlight or show some light around to make sure you don't end up stepping on a snake or coming across this snake.
Yeah.
And so Howard Thurman talks about, as he's hearing him say this, he's like training his body and he's going over in his mind, like, okay, I'm going to keep a flashlight under my pillow. And he was like reenacting, like I'd go get the flashlight and I'd shine it on the snake. He's kind of training his body to be prepared to do that if he has to go up and use the bathroom when he's asleep. So his body just naturally does it without even like thinking about it.
Yeah.
And he says like, that's how the disadvantaged and that's how people in the margins navigate society living in fear is that they just naturally, without even thinking about it, navigate the world and their society in a way that like prevents violence from happening to them.
Yeah.
And I think this is a thing for Black people, but I also think it's a big thing for women, where I think sometimes, right, I know women and girls in different spaces are taught to like be small and to like kind of be away from different things. And like, which is real because like the threat of violence is real towards women in the world that we live in.
Yeah. And they're often blamed for why harm and violence has been happened towards them.
Terrible.
They're often looked to be the one as the reason why it happened. Well, you shouldn't have been there, or you shouldn't have worn that, or you shouldn't have looked that way, or you shouldn't have put your hair like that.
Yeah.
The intersectionality of it all, if you add race on top of that, is also, you know, if you add like being a queer on top of that, or if you add whatever, you know, there's so many marginalized communities. But I think that what he says here summarizes what you just said so perfectly. He says, Howard Thurman says, this is precisely what the weak do everywhere. Through bitter experience, they have learned how to exercise extreme care, how to behave so as to reduce the threat of immediate danger from their environment. Fear thus becomes a form of life assurance, making possible the continuation of physical existence with a minimum of active violence. Case in point, my mom and dad are building a house, their dream home, you know, which is awesome. And excited for them, me, my mom and sister went to this furniture place up in like North Scottsdale, deep in the North Scottsdale, where all the white people are. And so the three of us, Black women, and when we get together, we blackety black, you know, but it's wild going into this furniture store that is seemingly owned by white women, white people, and there's white people everywhere. We are the only people of color in in eyesight in this warehouse. And my dad's like calling my mom. They're on FaceTime being all loud. And I'm like, it's making me nervous. Not because my mom or sister, any of us were acting wrongly. But I was nervous and ever so conscious of how much attention we were bringing upon ourselves in an all white space. Because if at any moment in time, if any one of those white women didn't like what we were doing, we could be a victim of violence. And I'm trying to calculate all the time, how much risk do I want to make in this environment, whereas someone who is of white,
they're not even thinking about that.
They're not thinking about it. But also, I'm also trying to calculate, I'm trying to make them as comfortable with my Blackness as possible so that I'm not receiving violence from them or harm from them. Also, let me tell you another quick story. That's one space. Then I went into another space where this is Patreon, so this is a safe space to tell the story. But I literally went to a baby shower of a minority Latina friend who is in a church that is predominantly white. The culture is white. So if the goal is whiteness, that automatically by default means that the culture is anti-Black or anti any other ethnicity because the goal is whiteness. Went to this baby shower. They played this game where you had to write down a memory you had with the lady who was having the baby, my friend, or my used to be friend, whatever. And she had to guess who wrote the memory down and all of that. So there was a memory that another friend of mine, I just call them friends. I don't have names for them yet, but I'm trying to figure that out. She wrote down a memory, and she literally said, remember when you braided my hair because we went to Disneyland together and it was about to rain, so you braided my hair. So this other friend who has to guess who they had this memory with is like saying out loud, there's like 25 to 30 women in a circle. Everyone's looking at each other. Most of them are white. There are several minorities. Two others are black women. So I'm one of 3 black women in this space of 30 women. Maybe four black women, 5. I forgot the other girl and her daughter. But anyways, she is saying out loud and trying to recollect, like, who could this be? And she literally says, this couldn't possibly be Erin. Like, her hair was shorter than it is right now. And in that moment, the whole group looks at me and laughs. Literally laughs at me, and I'm like trying to make light of it. It's such a terrible thing, but I'm trying to make light of it because, one, I feel like this is only a joke in an all-white space, period. All the time, it's only a joke in an all-white space. 2, I already don't want to be here. Why am I here? And then 3, I stayed too long and I got harmed. Received a microaggression from a minority woman who is surrendered to assimilation. That's what I'm naming it now. It's these minorities that are in sunken places that are surrendered to assimilation, upholding pillars of white supremacy. And they also begin to echo the harmful violence that their white counterparts and friends and circles that they run in do towards other people. And so that's why, again, like, just to give another example of violence, it's not just always white people. It's minorities or anybody that upholds pillars of white supremacy, and anyone that is surrendered to assimilation, that chooses to participate in that type of psychological ideology that causes harm to anybody that's of a different ethnicity. And so, but when you receive the religion of Jesus, when you receive the religion of Jesus, you are receiving a religion that is of liberation and abolition. Come on now. So anyways, in that experience, I gained so much insight into that is not what I'm about. Because if I repeat that story to anyone that was there, it'd be like, what's the big deal? But when you understand white supremacy and how it functions in the world, it is not a little thing. It is not a little thing. Those little things perpetuate a big thing.
And that's what causes you to live in fear. Which causes you to live in fear.
Literally never going to one of those hosted by any of those people ever again in my life, because it is a harmful place for me. It is anti-black. It is. There's anti-Semitism there. You know what I mean? Whew, I'm fired up. So anyways.
And then Howard Thurman goes on to say, and at face value, seeing this and hearing this, he's not, this is the interesting thing I think that he does. He doesn't like push down all this other, he doesn't push down those feelings and say, don't feel that, that's not right. He gives acknowledgement to the reality of the situation, said this is how people live because of the oppressive systems.
Yes.
But then he says something to encourage those who are disadvantaged, encourage those minorities, encourage those in the margins. And that's what you said at the beginning. It's simple. If you're a Christian, you're almost taught this and shown this all the time. But the way he phrases it is like so beautiful. I'm not going to be able to do it like he does in his book. But and it seems so simple. He just says it's like that you are a child of God. And he was like you are, and he does that by quoting the scripture, saying like, man, God takes care of his creation and all these things. Like saying like, and you're his children. And the saying, like you said, your identity, and kind of puts it back and saying that like, man, there's a God, there's a supernatural being outside of our cosmos that loves you. You have value. Like you have value. And kind of just puts that and gives that as kind of his case to combat like when this fear tries to eat us up inside and tries to destroy us and make us feel that we're less than. And that's like, no, like you have value. You don't deserve to be treated that way. Because if you just internalize that fear, then you begin to view yourself as worthless, as like, oh, I guess maybe I do have short hair. Maybe I need longer hair. Type thing, and you begin to internalize
that who I am as I am is not enough.
What that and he fights that statement by saying that you are loved, you have value.
Yeah, so that's powerful, babe.
So powerful.
We both have to go. It's 1:55.
Yes.
I would have loved to keep talking about this.
So much more to say. But chapter 3.
Yeah.
We'll have a lot to say.
Yeah, you already read it.
Good.
I got to get
Yeah, I already read it. It's good. I'm ready
we'll
to talk about it.
We'll do chapter 3, but this is, I love doing this book club, these recaps with you. And
thanks so much
thoughts.
for being with us.
Yeah, doing a live exegesis. Is that what you would call it?
Yeah, maybe, live exegesis of Thurman's
Being
book.
married to you is teaching me all these big words.
Yeah, some jargon, some theological jargon.
All right, guys.
Thanks for being with us. Love you guys. Be good.
Bye.
Peace.